welcome to my house. It's very nice to have you here. Though I don't know if I'm in the right place because I didn't stand up for any of those things, Blake. I'm not lost. I don't know if I should even be talking this morning about this topic. I don't get lost that much. And when this was the topic, I was the kid who always had the map, in the car on the road trip. I was that kid. I'm always the one who knows where the airport restaurant, the restrooms are, all that. So when this was the topic, I actually had to think a lot about it. And a lot of you have heard me talk over the years about something, someplace. I am literally going to tell you a couple of stories that I have never shared in public. We'll see how that goes. So some of you know that I grew up in rural Arkansas. Is anybody else here from Arkansas this morning? Yeah, we don't let people out. There's only like one donkey that leaves the state. And if you're not on it, you can't leave. So it's very hard to get out of Arkansas. And I grew up in this town. I grew up not only in Arkansas, but I grew up in a town of 1,200 people. This idyllic town surrounded by cow pastures in all directions. And in a town like that, how many of you grew up in a really small town? Okay, so some of you all know what I'm talking about. If you grow up in a town like that, you basically have these deep friends. You are able to go to their house without your parents knowing. You're able to knock on their patio door and they open it up. You're able to do things. You hunt in the woods, go swimming in the lake. And you develop these really deep friendships. And my friend's name was Train. That was his nickname. They called him Train. I had no idea why they called him Train. They called him Train. And that's true, I don't know why we called him Train. And he lived 1 block from me. And every waking hour of free time that I had, I was with Train. Because we played basketball together, and we swam together, and we collected baseball cards together, and we shared all of our secrets together. And it was this incredible friendship, you know the kind. The one that you look forward to every day, catching up, telling your secrets, hearing what they think about things. And I was very fortunate to have this level of friendship this early in life, because Train and I really became friends when we were about 10 or 11. And one of the things we loved to do was go to the lake, and we went to the lake one day. We were in, I think, 8th or 9th grade. And he was like really tired. Didn't know why he was really tired. Couldn't really swim that day. Anyway, he went home. Didn't think much about it. A couple days later, he's like, I'm not feeling so good. I'm gonna go to the doctor. Turns out, Greg has lymphoma. So he's in 9th grade, and this is the first time I've ever confronted this kind of situation. And so he goes through chemotherapy, he goes through radiation, he goes to St. Jude's in Memphis, and he gets better. And we're really excited because not only does he get better, but we're going to get to play basketball together. And you got to understand, in my small town, it's like that old movie Hoosiers. Everybody in the town comes out for the basketball games on Tuesdays and Fridays. And if you play basketball, you're really somebody in a town of 1,200. And so Greg and I are going to be on the same team. So we start practicing together, shooting hoops together, getting ready, getting his strength back. Everything's going great. And then he goes for his final checkup, and it's back. He goes through chemotherapy. 2 years later, Greg's dead. I'm 16 and have just lost my cornerstone. And in that series of months, as the fog started to clear, I took 2 things away that I've never given up from that loss. One was, always have a best friend. I have made sure that I invest in and care for and answer the call when it comes always from the 2 or 3 best friends that I have. Because I know what it feels like to lose one. And the other is, and some of you may also know this feeling, when you lose something that important, it can also be liberating. Because you have survived that loss. Because you have come through that loss. It reminds me of this story. There's a guy named Fred Shuttlesworth. Fred Shuttlesworth is the most important leader in Birmingham during the Civil Rights Movement. And very early on, his house was bombed. And he only survived because they put the bomb in the wrong place. They put the bomb next to the house in a way that there was a wall there that shielded him from dying. And afterwards he said, you know what? I escaped death. It's all bonus time now. Fred would put himself in front of policemen, in front of dogs, in front of hoses, in front of anything, because he had already faced the ultimate loss. Fred lived into his 90s, doing the work of civil rights. And so the first thing that I think about today is I think about this quote. One of my favorites, in fact, probably my favorite song in the world, Curtis Mayfield. When I think about Train, when I think about Greg, I think about this quote. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesels humming. You don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Greg gave me this liberation through his loss. This fearlessness to take risks. This call to answer yes to weird things like building museums or running an art center when you're not an artist. Greg gave that to me and I take it with me. And so the first chapter of my talk about loss today is a thank you to Greg. For that loss propels me every day. And I hope that you too will find something that you have lost that will liberate you from fear. Second thing that came to mind today around loss and lost is stubbornness. It was mentioned that that I was involved in building the Center for Civil and Human Rights. How many of you have been to this center? So along the way we said, look, we need to find a real storyteller. When we went out and we got involved in the project, a guy named George C. Wolfe. Some of you in the theater world know George C. Wolfe. He's won 2 Tonys. He's written lots of amazing plays. He directs films. He's one of the most important Broadway directors who's working. And George likes to call himself a dictator. As an artist, he basically dictates what happens. And it reminded me of this quote from Francis Ford Coppola, another artistic dictator, if you've ever read about it. You have to be really courageous about your instincts and your ideas. Otherwise, you'll knuckle under and things that might have been memorable will be lost. When we were working on the center, we wanted to do a memorial to the 4 girls who were killed in Birmingham in the church bombing. And so we decided we were going to do an installation that looked like stained glass. And so we got this great mock-up of fake stained glass. We're going to make it plastic because it's easier to take care of. So we showed this to George, and he said, absolutely not. I will quit the project if you do this. And I said, why? He said, it has to be stained glass. It must be authentic or else it won't be emotional. The whole point is that you as a visitor have to see the stained glass and the loss of these girls' lives. So we found a couple in Maine who make old-fashioned stained glass. It's a man and woman, white couple, who didn't really know a lot about the story of the 4 little girls. And George worked with him on exactly what he wanted. They began to learn the story. They began to learn the background of the 4 girls. And in fact, if you've been to the center, you'll see that stained glass piece has their faces. It's one of the only memorials to them that actually shows their faces. As the artists were working on the stained glass, they would cry into the glass as they worked it, remembering the loss of these 4 girls' lives. That loss and that feeling of that loss is in that stained glass piece. It's in that stained glass piece because George realized that as a creative person, you have to stay true to your true north. You can't lose your vision. You have to be a dictator. And it's one of the lessons I've learned being here as well and seeing the artists. And all of you face that. Every day you face that choice. Do I go this way or do I stay true to what I believe in? Do I fight for it or do I compromise? I'm the suit, right? I'm the one who's often asking, can we afford it? Can we really do it? Are people going to come? My artistic colleagues are the ones, thank God, who say, I'm staying true to my true north. Part of the loss and part of not losing is knowing when not to get lost. There's another piece of this I think that's important too. And that is, on the other side of the equation, sometimes we need somebody to be honest with us when we're doubting ourselves. When we were building the Center for Civil and Human Rights, I had an existential crisis as to whether or not we were going to really pull it off. And some of you know a person named Alicia Phillips. She's a wonderful leader in this community. And I called her up, I said, Alicia, I got to talk to you. having a little bit of crisis of confidence, can we have bourbons? Because bourbon is always good for crisis of confidence. So we sit down, and I'm ready. I've got like this whole story I want to tell her, and how I'm feeling, and what's going on in my head, and I'm thinking this is going to be a therapy session. And so I sit down, and I start talking. She's got her bourbon. She says, "Stop. You're an idiot. Go do the work. Stop complaining." That was the end of the conversation. The existential crisis was over. So the other thing that I want to implore us all, and I put myself in this category, is that we need to help each other not get lost and not lose that true north. And when we come to each other for that moment of I'm in crisis, to be honest, to tell each other that we're idiots, to tell each other to go back and do the work. Because if you stay true to that course, occasionally things like this happen. There were a lot of people who stayed true to this course. Former Mayor Shirley Franklin, George C. Wolfe, architect Phil Freelon, former Mayor Kasim Reed, stayed true to what this was trying to become and would not compromise. I'll tell you one other story. Two major foundations when we were building this said, "Could you just build a box and spend all the money on the exhibits? Do we really need architecture in Atlanta?" Two, sometimes you have to fight not to get lost. And sometimes we need friends to help us not get lost. So what is the past loss that I experienced? One is this project. And now, perhaps most importantly, as I think about loss and I think about Atlanta, I think about now. And I want you to think about an experience that you've had where art has fundamentally impacted you in a deep spiritual way. For me, that happened the first time that I traveled to Europe when I was in college backpacking, doing the trip that we all do and the Eurail passes. And I went to Madrid, and I went to the big museum there. And it was the first time that I saw Guernica. Some of you know the work by Pablo Picasso. It is based on the Spanish Revolution. It is a gargantuan work of war and death and loss and hope and dictatorship. It is one of the world's great masterpieces. And I was not expecting the response that I had. I think I stood in front of it for over 30 minutes and was unable to move. I was so taken with all that was within this paint and canvas. It was almost as if it was a human story on this grand scale that was only speaking to me. You've had those moments. You know what art can do uniquely when we're in a space and all of a sudden something within you is resonating in the deep, deep spiritual way. That is happening right now in Atlanta. I fundamentally and truly believe, I've been here almost 30 years, and I have never seen a moment quite like this in Atlanta. We are seeing works that are being done by artists of all genres that truly are impacting the people who are witnessing them. The latest one, if you haven't seen it, in my opinion, which opened last week, is The Project, the temporary art center that Scott Ingram and 30 other artists have. Has anybody seen this in the Warehouse Project yet? You need to go over to 4th Ward and you need to see this. It is a 70,000 plus square foot warehouse full of Atlanta's great artists at the moment. And it is overwhelming in its engagement. That is happening in so many places right now. We have a moment in Atlanta, but we also have a deep challenge. The deep challenge is we're not New York or LA or Chicago or Barcelona where people just come to find our art. We have to elevate our own art scene. And that has to start with the people in this room. We have to be the ones who are going, who are showcasing, who are buying, who are elevating, who are talking about what's happening right now. Because we don't have the luxury of all of these other people coming and validating us. This is the moment we have to validate ourselves. And we not only have to validate ourselves because we have to validate it, but because of this. Creativity is an act of defiance. We can't afford to lose this moment. Because not only is Atlanta, in my opinion, on the cusp of one of those incredible creative explosions, but because of who's here, and because of our legacy, and because of all of you, we actually can speak to this political moment. We can actually speak to this social moment. We can actually create art that has a social justice and impact component, unlike almost any community in this country. And I'm so serious about this. I hope that you feel it, and if you don't feel it, give me a week of your time and I will help you feel it. Because it is happening. But we have to be a part of it. We have to be the consumers and the elevators of it, or we're going to lose this moment. We have to help each other by doing small things. Here's my sock game today. Anybody know whose sock this is? Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo Pharaoh, right? These are Wiz socks. This is double bonus sock game right here. Let me tell you why. This is a local artist, and for every pair of these socks you buy, they give a pair of socks to folks who don't have homes. That's finding ways to support. I know you like my sock game. That's finding ways to support each other. After the 2016 election, I don't know about you, I was a little depressed for a couple of days. I was thinking about what I could do in the aftermath of the 2016 election. And I decided that I was going to pick about 30 or 40 activist friends. I was going to send them a note and I was going to say, I'm going to buy you a subscription to one of your favorite magazines as a way to sustain you over the coming year. It's also a way to support journalism, because I had this feeling that maybe journalists were going to be under pressure for some reason. So I bought them these subscriptions. And the notes I got back were incredible. The stories about the moments in which they were reading some issue of something and how it sustained them. It was a little way to find some intervention to do something both for journalism and for them. We need to find that in the creative community. We need to find those ways, especially as we enter this holiday season, how we can tie together, supporting each other, supporting Atlanta, supporting creativity. That to me is one of the most important elements that's missing. You all are doing the work. We all need to build the audience so that we're driving the conversation. One other piece of the puzzle. There are lots of things happening in the world. I fundamentally believe that the more that we have artists at the tables around transportation, affordable housing, politics, homelessness, the more that we have artists at those tables as problem solvers, the faster we're going to solve those problems. And so I try hard to open those doors, to make those connections. I want to challenge everybody in this room to do the same. Find ways in which to bring other creative types into non-creative situations. Find ways to bring creative types into problem solving on a grand scale, on a neighborhood scale, on an organizational scale. Let's not keep the creatives only for the marketing. Let's put the creatives into the problem solving itself.
Amen.
In Atlanta, we have this moment, and we have all the tools and the people we need, but we haven't opened all the doors. And so the final thing that I would say is, let's not, this is the last Creative Mornings of the decade. Think about that for a minute. We are defining the teens and opening the 20s. I am committing to you today, and I hope you will join me in the commitment, that we will support each other and every other creative person in this city as we try to move it forward and tackle the hardest issues we face, using all the creative elements, all the artistic elements, all of the joyful energy, all of the tools that we have to move this city forward, so that when we reconvene at the end of the 20s, we will have not lost the next decade. Thank you very much.